My parents told me, "You're adopted. You get nothing when we die." Then Grandma's lawyer called. The call came while I was eating cereal before my shift at the auto parts store. "Austin Caldwell, this is Margaret Stevens, estate attorney. Your grandmother Eleanor left you something." I almost laughed. "There's been a mistake. My parents said I wasn't in her will." "Mr. Caldwell, we need to meet immediately." 2 hours later, I'm staring at documents. $2.1 million, a house, investment accounts, all mine. "But I'm adopted," I stammered. Margaret handed me a letter in Grandma's handwriting. "Austin, you are not adopted. You're my biological grandson. Your father's first wife, Jennifer, was your real mother. She died when you were 2. Susan made David pretend you were adopted because she wanted you gone." My hand shook. 21 years of being treated like garbage. While my siblings got cars and vacations, I worked 2 jobs just to afford ramen. Every family dinner where they'd discuss college funds for Logan and Ashley. But when I asked about help with community college, Dad would say, "You need to learn independence." The letter continued. "David and Susan think they're inheriting everything. They've been spending money they don't have. The new truck, kitchen remodel, Logan's boat. They borrowed against my estate. They get nothing. But there was more." Margaret pulled out another folder. "Your grandmother hired a private investigator 3 years ago. She documented everything. Photos of me walking to work in the rain because my bike broke. Messages between Susan and her friends. Can't wait for the old bat to die so we can finally live properly." The investigator had recorded conversations too. Austin thinks he's family, but he's just David's mistake from his first marriage. "Once Eleanor's gone, we'll have enough money to cut him off completely." "Your grandmother was furious," Margaret said. "She changed her will 6 months ago. Your parents get nothing. Your siblings get $1,000 each. Everything else goes to you." The best part, the investigator had proof they'd already spent $200,000 they didn't have. New credit cards, loans against their expected inheritance, deposits on a vacation home in Florida. I drove to their house with Margaret. It was Friday night, their weekly family dinner that I was never invited to. Through the window, I could see them celebrating with champagne and expensive takeout. Susan opened the door, saw us both, and her face lit up with greed. "Finally, Margaret, right? How much did Mother leave us? We've been waiting so patiently." Logan and Ashley crowded behind her, practically bouncing with excitement. David appeared with a bottle of champagne, ready to toast their good fortune. I smiled. "Actually, she left me everything, and this letter explaining how you lied about me being adopted." Susan's face went white. "That's impossible. You're not even real family." "Oh, but I am." I pulled out the birth certificate Grandma had kept safe. "My mother was Jennifer Caldwell. You know, Dad's first wife. The one you made him pretend never existed." David's champagne bottle slipped from his hands, shattering on their expensive marble floor. The floor they'd renovated with money they thought they'd inherit. "This has to be a mistake," Ashley whispered. Margaret stepped forward. "There's no mistake. Austin inherits $2.1 million, the house, and all investment accounts. You 3 children each receive $1,000. David and Susan receive nothing." "Nothing?" Susan's voice cracked. "But we borrowed. We spent." "Oh, about that $200,000 you borrowed expecting your inheritance." I held up the legal papers. "The bank wants it back tomorrow with interest." Logan started crying. "But my boat payments, the vacation house deposit." "Not my problem," I said. "Maybe you should have treated your brother better." David finally found his voice. "Austin, please. We're family." "No," I said, looking him dead in the eye. "Jennifer was family. Grandma Eleanor was family. You're just the people who made my life hell for 21 years. Margaret cleared her throat. "There's one more thing your grandmother wanted you to know." She handed me a sealed envelope marked "Open only after confronting them." Inside was a single photo. My real mother, Jennifer, clearly pregnant, with a massive bruise on her face. The back read, 2 weeks before she died. David's handwriting. I looked up at my father, the photo shaking in my hand. "Grandma didn't think Mom died in an accident. She thought you killed her." David's face went white as snow. "That's not, I never." Susan grabbed his arm. "Don't say anything. Don't you dare say anything." But Ashley was staring at the photo, then at her father, and she started backing toward the door. "Oh my God. That's why Grandma hated you. That's why she cut you out." Logan stopped crying and looked at his father with new eyes. And suddenly David rushed toward me, not to hug me, but with his hands reaching for my throat. Margaret moved faster than I expected for a woman in her 60s. She stepped between us and David crashed into her instead, stumbling backward. She pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police. One more step toward my client and you'll face assault charges on top of everything else." David froze, his hands still raised, breathing hard. Susan yanked him back by his shirt. You idiot. You complete idiot. This is exactly what she wanted. What Austin wants. To make you look guilty. I wasn't the one who put a bruise on Jennifer's face 2 weeks before she died, I said quietly. Ashley was still backing toward the door, her eyes wide. Dad? She was shaking. Tell me you didn't. Tell me Grandma was wrong. David's jaw clenched. Your grandmother was a bitter old woman who never forgave me for marrying Susan. That photo means nothing. Jennifer fell. It was an accident. Both things were accidents. Margaret's voice cut through. The coroner's report from 23 years ago lists cause of death as blunt force trauma to the head, consistent with a fall downstairs. But there were also older bruises. Bruises, the coroner noted, but your father explained away as clumsiness during pregnancy. I felt sick. You hit her while she was pregnant with me? David's face twisted. You don't understand. Jennifer was difficult. She had these moods. Postpartum depression. They called it later. But back then, she wasn't postpartum, I interrupted. I was 2 when she died. That's not postpartum depression. Susan finally spoke, her voice ice cold. This is ancient history. Even if David did push Jennifer, which he didn't, it's been over 2 decades. No one can prove anything. The case is closed. Margaret smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. Actually, Mrs. Caldwell, Eleanor hired a forensic specialist to review the original investigation 6 months ago. There were significant inconsistencies that were never pursued. The angle of Jennifer's fall. The fact that neighbors reported hearing screaming an hour before David called 911, a grocery bag found at the top of the stairs, suggesting she'd just come home when it happened. Logan had stopped crying entirely. His face was pale. You killed Austin's mom? David whirled on him. I didn't kill anyone. She fell. I tried to help her, but it was too late. Then why didn't you call 911 right away? Ashley's voice was barely a whisper. Why was there an hour gap? Because I was in shock, David snapped. Because I was trying to revive her. Because I had a 2-year-old son crying in the next room and I was terrified. Or because you needed time to get your story straight, I said. Because you needed to make it look like an accident instead of what it really was. Prove it, Susan hissed. You can't prove any of this. It's all speculation and circumstantial evidence. Eleanor was a vindictive witch who wanted to hurt us from beyond the grave. Margaret tucked her phone away. The police are on their way. I've also sent them copies of the forensic review and the original case file. They'll decide if there's enough evidence to reopen the investigation. David's legs seemed to give out. He sank onto the arm of their leather couch, the one they'd bought last month with borrowed money. This can't be happening. Ashley grabbed her purse from the entry table. I'm leaving. I can't be here right now. Where are you going? Susan demanded. Away from you people, Ashley shot back. Away from whatever this is. Logan stood up too, wiping his face. I'm coming with you. You will not abandon this family, Susan said, her voice shaking with rage. We are in crisis and you two are just going to run away? This family abandoned Austin for 21 years, Ashley said. We watched you treat him like garbage and we said nothing. We laughed when you made jokes about him at dinner. We took the cars and the money and the vacations while he walked to work in the rain. So yeah, Mom, I'm running away. Because I don't want to be anything like you. She left. Logan followed without another word. The house felt bigger with just the 4 of us. Me and Margaret standing near the door. David collapsed on the couch arm. Susan rigid with fury in the middle of her expensive living room. The silence stretched until we heard sirens in the distance. You've destroyed this family, Susan said, looking at me with pure hatred. Eleanor poisoned you against us, and now you're going to take everything. Even if David goes to prison for something he didn't do, you'll still have your money and your self-righteousness. I hope it keeps you warm at night. I thought about all the nights I'd gone to bed hungry because I couldn't afford groceries and rent in the same week. All the times I'd asked for help and been told to figure it out myself. All the family photos on their walls that didn't include me. I'll manage, I said. 2 police cars pulled up outside. Margaret opened the door for them. Officers, thank you for coming. We have a situation that requires your attention. The next few hours were a blur. David and Susan were taken to the station for questioning. Margaret drove me back to my apartment, the tiny studio above a laundromat where I'd lived for 3 years. It cost $650 a month and the heat barely worked, but it was mine. You should stay somewhere else tonight, Margaret said as we pulled up. Once the press gets hold of this story, they'll find you here. The press? A wealthy woman's will that cuts out her son and daughter-in-law, leaves everything to the grandson they pretended was adopted, and potentially implicates the son in a 23-year-old murder? Austin, this is going to be everywhere by tomorrow morning. I looked up at my apartment window, the curtain I'd hung to cover the broken blind, the air conditioning unit I'd installed myself because the landlord refused, the life I'd built from nothing because no one else would help me. I don't have anywhere else to go. Margaret pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. "This is my home address. I have a guest room. Pack a bag and follow me. We have a lot to discuss about managing your grandmother's estate, and you need to be somewhere the reporters can't find you." "Why are you helping me?" I asked. "You're just my lawyer." She looked at me for a long moment. "Eleanor was my best friend for 40 years. I watched her cry over you more times than I can count." She showed me the photos the investigator took. You walking 5 miles to work in a snowstorm because your bike chain broke, eating dollar store crackers for dinner, wearing the same 3 shirts to work because you couldn't afford more. She wanted to help you sooner, but David and Susan had already convinced you that you weren't really family. She was afraid you'd refuse her money out of pride or because you thought you didn't deserve it. So she waited. She planned. And she made sure that when she died, you'd finally get everything they stole from you. Your inheritance, your truth, your mother's memory. I'm helping you because Eleanor asked me to, and because after reading that investigator's reports, I think you're a good man who got dealt the worst possible hand. Now pack your bag. We have work to do. I packed everything I owned in 20 minutes. It fit in 2 duffel bags and a backpack. Margaret raised her eyebrows but didn't comment. Her house was in a neighborhood I'd only driven through on my way to other places. Big trees, sidewalks, houses with 2-car garages and landscaped yards. She pulled into a driveway with solar panels on the roof and a garden full of roses. "Guest room is upstairs, second door on the right," she said. "Bathroom is across the hall. Make yourself at home. I'm going to make some calls." The guest room was bigger than my entire apartment. It had a real bed with a headboard and matching nightstands, curtains that weren't sheets thumbtacked to the wall, a closet with wooden hangers. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out my phone. 47 missed calls, 63 text messages, most from numbers I didn't recognize, but some from people I worked with. My manager at the auto parts store. "Hey man, are you okay? Saw your name on the news. Call me." I opened the news app. The top story in the local section was Wealthy Widows Will Sparks Family Drama and Possible Murder Investigation. They'd used an old photo of Grandma from some charity event. She was smiling. I barely remembered her like that. Most of my memories were from the last few years, when she was sick and David and Susan only visited when they wanted something. The article didn't have many details yet, just that Eleanor Caldwell had died 3 months ago. Her will was being executed this week, and there were questions about her son's first wife's death in 2002. They mentioned me as the primary beneficiary but didn't use my name. That wouldn't last long. Ashley called at 9 p.m. I answered because I didn't know what else to do. "Austin?" Her voice was quiet. "Are you okay?" "I don't know, are you?" She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Logan and I are at a hotel. We used his credit card, but it's almost maxed out because of the boat payments. We might have enough for 3 days, maybe 4 if we don't eat much." "What are you going to do after that?" "I don't know." Ashley was crying now. "I keep thinking about all the times we watched them treat you like garbage and we just went along with it. You asked me for $50 once, do you remember? You needed it for a work uniform, and Mom told me not to give it to you. She said you needed to learn to budget better. I listened to her. I let my brother go without because Mom told me to. What kind of person does that make me?" "A person who was raised by Susan and David," I said. "You didn't know any better." "That's not an excuse." "No," I agreed. "It's not, but it's an explanation." She was quiet for a minute. "The news is saying Dad might have killed your mom, Jennifer. They're saying Grandma thought he murdered her and that's why she cut him out of the will. What do you think?" "I think I saw the way he looked at you tonight." Ashley's voice hardened. "I think if Margaret hadn't been there, he would have hurt you, maybe killed you too. And I think I've spent my whole life making excuses for him because it was easier than admitting what he really is." "What is he really?" "A man who hurts people when they're in his way." We talked for another hour. Ashley told me things I hadn't known. How David had thrown a plate at the wall during an argument last year and Susan made her lie to the neighbors about the noise. How he'd shoved Logan during a fight about the boat purchase, hard enough that Logan hit the door frame. How Susan always defended him, always made excuses, always blamed whoever he'd hurt for provoking him. "I should have told you," Ashley said. "I should have warned you that they were planning to cut you off completely after Grandma died. Susan talked about it all the time. She had this whole plan to change the locks on the house and tell you not to come around anymore. Like you were a stray dog they were finally getting rid of." My throat felt tight. "I'm sorry you had to grow up with them." "I'm sorry you did too," she said. "But at least Logan and I had each other. You had no one." After we hung up, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the photo of my mother, the bruise on her face, the way my father had lunged at me with his hands outstretched, going straight for my throat like it was instinct, like he'd done it before. Margaret knocked on my door at 6 a.m. I was already awake, sitting by the window watching the sun come up over her perfectly maintained lawn. "Coffee?" she asked. We sat at her kitchen table with our mugs and she spread out paperwork between us. "We need to move quickly," she said. "The bank that gave your parents the loans is going to file a claim against the estate. They'll argue that David and Susan borrowed that money in good faith based on an expected inheritance. Can they win?" "No," Margaret said firmly. "Eleanor's will was ironclad. I made sure of it. But they can drag this out for months, maybe a year. In the meantime, we need to secure your grandmother's house. Your parents still have keys and they're desperate. I wouldn't put it past them to try and remove valuable items before the estate is fully settled. What do I need to do? Get a locksmith out there today and change every lock. I'll file for a restraining order on your behalf to keep David and Susan off the property. We'll also need to do a full inventory of everything in the house to make sure nothing's missing already." "Already?" Margaret's expression darkened. "Eleanor's caretaker called me yesterday evening. Susan was at the house 2 days before Eleanor died. The caretaker left them alone for 20 minutes while she went to pick up prescriptions. When she came back, Susan was coming out of Eleanor's office, and she looked flustered. The caretaker didn't think much of it at the time, but now she's wondering what Susan was doing in there. You think she was looking for the will, or trying to change it?" Margaret tapped her pen on the table. "Eleanor kept the original will in a safe deposit box at the bank, and I had a copy in my office. There's no way Susan could have actually changed anything, but she might have taken other documents. Financial records, personal papers. We won't know until we do a thorough inventory. I spent the day at Grandma's house. It was a big old colonial with a wraparound porch and a garden that had gone wild without her there to tend it. I'd been there maybe 5 times in my life, always awkward visits where Susan would find reasons to cut them short. The locksmith came first, $200 to change 5 locks. I paid him cash from the $2,000 advance Margaret had given me against the estate. Then I started going through rooms with a notebook, writing down everything I saw. Furniture, artwork, photo albums. In Grandma's office, I found filing cabinets full of documents going back decades. One folder was labeled Jennifer. I sat on the floor and opened it with shaking hands. Inside were letters my mother had written to Grandma, hospital records from my birth, photos of her holding me as a baby, a journal entry dated April 2002, 2 months before she died. David grabbed my arm so hard today that I cried. He said I was being dramatic. He said I bruised easily because of the pregnancy vitamins. But Austin is 2 years old. I'm not pregnant anymore. I'm not taking those vitamins anymore. And I don't bruise this easily. I never used to bruise this easily. Mom asked if everything was okay and I lied. I told her everything was fine, but it's not fine. I'm scared of my own husband and I don't know how to leave him. Where would I go? How would I support Austin? David controls all the money. He says I can't work because I need to stay home with the baby. But Austin is in daycare 3 days a week now. I think David just doesn't want me to have my own money, doesn't want me to have a way out. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the journal. There were more entries, pages and pages of my mother documenting abuse, financial control, verbal attacks, being shoved, being grabbed, being told she was worthless, and lucky that David put up with her. The last entry was dated the 10th of June 2002, 2 days before she died. I told David I want a divorce. I told him I'm taking Austin and leaving. He didn't yell. He just stared at me with this cold expression and said, "You're not taking my son anywhere." Then he smiled. It was the scariest thing I've ever seen, that smile, like he'd already decided something and was just waiting for the right moment to do it. I'm so scared. I'm writing this at the library because I don't feel safe writing it at home. I'm going to ask Mom if Austin and I can stay with her for a while, just until I figure things out, just until. The entry ended there, unfinished. 2 days later, she was dead at the bottom of the stairs. I called Margaret. She listened while I read her the journal entries, my voice breaking on almost every sentence. "Austin," she said gently when I finished, "I need you to put that journal in a plastic bag. Don't touch the pages anymore. We're giving that to the police." "They're really going to reopen the case? After what you just read to me?" "Yes. This is evidence of domestic violence and possible premeditation. The fact that Jennifer told David she was leaving 2 days before she died, and that she documented being afraid of him, changes everything." Detective Amy Rosenthal came to the house that evening. She was young, maybe early 30s, with her hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that didn't miss anything. She photographed every page of the journal. She bagged the entire folder. She asked me questions about my father's behavior growing up, and I told her about the plate throwing, the shoving, the way he'd lunged at me last night. "Mr. Caldwell," she said when we were done, "I want to be honest with you. This case is 23 years old. Physical evidence is long gone. The original investigation was closed as an accidental death. Even with this journal and the forensic review your grandmother commissioned, getting charges filed is going to be difficult. But it's possible? It's possible." Her expression softened. I've worked cold cases before. Sometimes all it takes is one piece of new evidence to make people look at everything differently. This journal is that evidence. Your mother was documenting abuse and she told your father she was leaving. Then she died 2 days later in a suspicious fall. That's a pattern we see in domestic violence homicides. What happens now? Now I take this to my sergeant. We review the original case file. We re-interview everyone who was involved back then. Neighbors, the first responders, the coroner. And we see if there's enough to present to the district attorney. And David? He's already being questioned about the discrepancies in his original statement. Detective Rosenthal glanced at her notes. In 2002, he told investigators he was in the garage when he heard a crash. He said he ran inside and found Jennifer at the bottom of the stairs. But phone records show he made a call from the house phone at the same time he claims to have been in the garage. He told police he called 911 immediately, but there's an hour gap between when the coroner estimates Jennifer died and when David actually called for help. He told us last night that he was trying to revive her. For an hour? With a toddler in the house? Without calling for any kind of medical assistance? Detective Rosenthal shook her head. The story doesn't hold up. It never really did. But in 2002, he was a grieving widower with a small child and no prior record of violence. Investigators took him at his word. Now we know better. After she left, I walked through the house room by room. In the master bedroom, I found more photos of my mother. She looked happy in the early ones, smiling, young. Then the photos changed. She looked tired, thinner. In a photo from what must have been a few months before she died, she wasn't smiling at all. She was holding me on her hip and staring at the camera with hollow eyes. I took that photo off the wall and sat on the bed with it. "Mom," I said out loud, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I don't remember you. I'm sorry I grew up thinking I was adopted, that I wasn't really family. I'm sorry you were so scared and no one helped you." My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Austin Caldwell?" "Yeah. This is Trevor Walsh. I'm a reporter with Channel 7 News. I was hoping you'd answer a few questions about your grandmother's will and the investigation into your mother's death." I hung up. He called back immediately. I blocked the number. 2 minutes later, a different number called. I let it go to voicemail. Then another, and another. Margaret called at 10 p.m. "Stop answering calls from numbers you don't know. The press is going to hound you until something bigger comes along. Don't talk to any of them. Don't confirm anything. If they approach you in person, say, 'No comment,' and walk away. This is insane. This is what happens when money and possible murder intersect." She sighed. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we're meeting with the bank to discuss your parents' loans and we need you clear-headed." I couldn't rest. I lay in the guest bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about my mother's journal entries, thinking about David's cold smile, thinking about 23 years of lies. Somewhere across town, in whatever holding cell they'd put him in, my father was probably lying awake too, probably trying to figure out what to say, what story would save him, what lies he could tell. But the truth was already out there now, written in my mother's own hand, and no amount of lying was going to change it. The bank meeting was worse than I expected. David and Susan's loan officer was a thin man named Patrick Huang, who kept wiping sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Mr. and Mrs. Caldwell took out loans totaling $187,000 over the past 18 months, he explained, sliding papers across the conference table. They used Mrs. Eleanor Caldwell's estate as collateral. We were assured by both David and Susan that David was the sole beneficiary and that the estate was worth over $3 million. "Did you verify this?" Margaret asked. We requested documentation. Susan provided what appeared to be a copy of Eleanor's will dated 2019. It listed David as the primary beneficiary. Margaret's jaw tightened. That will was superseded by a new will in January of this year. The will Susan showed you was no longer valid. How were we supposed to know that? "You weren't," Margaret said coldly. "But that's your problem, not ours. You gave a substantial loan based on collateral the borrowers didn't actually have. That's a failure of due diligence on your part." Patrick's face flushed red. "Mrs. Caldwell committed fraud. She knowingly used an outdated will to secure loans. We'll be pressing charges." "Get in line," Margaret said. "She's already facing potential charges for elder exploitation. Eleanor was ill for the last year of her life and Susan had regular access to her. We're investigating whether Susan attempted to manipulate Eleanor into changing the will back or if she tried to access Eleanor's accounts." Patrick looked like he might throw up. "The bank wants its money back. The bank can file a claim against David and Susan Caldwell personally," Margaret said. "But you're not getting a penny from Eleanor's estate or from Austin. Your loan officers failed to verify the collateral. That's not Austin's responsibility." We went back and forth for another hour. Patrick kept insisting the bank had rights to the estate. Margaret kept shutting him down with legal precedent and cold, hard facts. Finally, Patrick slumped in his chair and admitted the bank would have to pursue David and Susan directly. "They don't have any money," he said miserably. "They spent it all. The truck, the renovations, the vacation home deposit. It's all gone." "Again," Margaret said. "Not Austin's problem." We left Patrick looking like his entire career was circling the drain. In the parking lot, Margaret turned to me. "That was the easy one." "The easy one? Wait until the credit card companies realize they're not getting paid. Wait until the boat dealer repossesses Logan's boat. Wait until the Florida real estate developer sues for the forfeited deposit. This is just the beginning, Austin. Your parents' financial house of cards is collapsing and it's going to be ugly." She was right. Over the next week, it got ugly fast. Logan's boat was repossessed 3 days later. He called me crying, begging me to pay off the loan. Just $30,000. "Please, Austin, it's all I have." I told him I couldn't help him. The boat was bought with money they expected to steal from me. Let it go. Ashley had better luck. She got a job waiting tables and found a cheap apartment across town. She called me once to say she'd changed her name back to Caldwell instead of keeping Susan's maiden name as her middle name. "I don't want anything connecting me to her anymore," Ashley said. "I know that sounds harsh, but I mean it. She made me into someone I hate." The Florida vacation home deposit was gone. The developer kept it as liquidated damages. David and Susan lost $75,000 in a single afternoon. Their credit cards were all maxed out, and the companies started calling for payment. Susan tried to negotiate, but they wouldn't budge. The truck got repossessed. Their fancy furniture was sold at auction to pay debts. Within 2 weeks, they'd gone from living in a $500,000 house to facing foreclosure. And through it all, Detective Rosenthal kept digging into my mother's death. She called me every few days with updates. We found 3 neighbors who remember hearing screaming that night. One of them almost called 911 but decided not to because the screaming stopped. Another neighbor saw David carrying grocery bags into the house around 6 p.m. Jennifer's car wasn't in the driveway yet, but David told police Jennifer had been home all afternoon, so he lied about the timeline. He lied about a lot of things. Detective Rosenthal paused. We also found Jennifer's best friend from 2002, a woman named Carmen Ruiz. She says Jennifer called her the morning of the day she died. Jennifer told Carmen she was planning to leave David and asked if she could stay with Carmen for a few days. Carmen said yes. They made plans for Jennifer to come over that evening with you. Jennifer never showed up because she was already dead. Because David killed her before she could leave. Can you prove it? We're building a case. The journal entries, the lies about the timeline, the neighbor testimonies, the fact that Jennifer told multiple people she was planning to leave. It's all circumstantial, but it's adding up. Detective Rosenthal's voice hardened. I've seen men walk free on less evidence than this, and I've seen men go to prison on more. It's going to come down to whether the district attorney thinks a jury will convict. When will you know? Few more weeks. Maybe a month. We're being thorough. I was staying at Margaret's house still. Reporters had found my old apartment and were camped outside. My landlord called to say I'd been evicted for breaking the no media circus clause that apparently existed in my lease. I didn't fight it. Margaret's guest room was bigger and safer, and I didn't want to go back to that studio above the laundromat anyway. But I couldn't stay with Margaret forever. So I drove out to Grandma's house one afternoon and walked through it with fresh eyes. It was too big for one person. 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a kitchen that hadn't been updated since 1995. But it was paid off. It was mine. And my mother had lived here once, before she married David. I found more of her things in the attic. Boxes labeled Jennifer's belongings. Clothes that smelled like dust and old perfume. Books with her name written inside the covers. A jewelry box with cheap costume jewelry and one real piece, a silver locket. Inside was a photo of her holding me as a newborn. We were both sleeping. She looked peaceful. I took the locket and wore it. It felt like having her close. Ashley came by one day while I was cleaning out the garage. She looked different, thinner. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wasn't wearing makeup. She looked more real than I'd ever seen her. I need to tell you something, she said. Okay. The night Mom showed us the photo of Jennifer with the bruise. Logan and I went back to the house after you left. We wanted to get some of our things before the bank took the house. And we found something. What? She pulled a small notebook from her purse. Mom's diary, from 2002. We weren't supposed to know about it, but Logan found it hidden in the back of her closet. My stomach dropped. What's in it? Ashley opened to a page marked with a sticky note. It's dated the 12th of June, 2002, the day Jennifer died. She started reading. David called me at work today, frantic. He said Jennifer fell down the stairs and died. He said it was an accident. He was crying on the phone. But when I got to the house, he wasn't crying anymore. He was calm. Too calm. He told me we needed to get our story straight. He said if people knew Jennifer was planning to leave him, it would look bad. He said we needed to tell everyone that things were fine between them. I asked him what really happened, and he just looked at me and said, "She was going to take my son away from me. I couldn't let that happen." Then he told me to go home and act normal. He said if I told anyone what he'd said, he'd make sure I never saw Logan again. He was 3 years old then. I believed David would do it. So I kept quiet. The notebook shook in Ashley's hands. She kept quiet for 23 years. She knew what he did, and she said nothing. She helped him cover it up. She made you think you were adopted so you'd never question the story. She turned you into the outsider so no one would listen if you ever figured out the truth. Where is this notebook now? Ashley handed it to me. Give it to the police. Give them everything. Let them see what kind of people our parents really are. This implicates Susan too. She could go to prison. Good, Ashley said flatly. She deserves it. I called Detective Rosenthal. She came to the house within an hour and took the notebook as evidence. She read the entry Ashley had marked and her expression went cold and hard. This is a confession, she said. Susan Caldwell admitted David killed Jennifer and she helped cover it up. That makes her an accessory after the fact at minimum. Possibly conspiracy. What happens now? Now I arrest both of them. It happened fast after that. Police showed up at the foreclosed house where David and Susan were still living, squatting essentially since the bank hadn't physically removed them yet. David was arrested for second-degree murder. Susan was arrested for accessory after the fact and obstruction of justice. Both were denied bail. The district attorney held a press conference announcing the arrests and the reopening of Jennifer Caldwell's death investigation. I watched it on Margaret's TV with Ashley sitting beside me. Logan had refused to come. He was still processing everything and didn't want to watch his parents get destroyed on live television. This is justice for Jennifer, the DA said, standing at a podium with Detective Rosenthal beside her. For 23 years, her death was written off as a tragic accident. But new evidence shows that Jennifer was the victim of domestic violence and that her husband, David Caldwell, murdered her to prevent her from leaving him and taking their son. His wife, Susan Caldwell, knew about the murder and helped him cover it up. Both will face the full extent of the law. Reporters shouted questions. Is the son involved? Did he know about the murder? The DA shut that down fast. Austin Caldwell was 2 years old when his mother was killed. He is a victim in this case, not a suspect. He recently learned the truth about his mother's death through documentation left by his grandmother, who suspected foul play for years but lacked proof until recently. More questions. What about the will? The inheritance? The DA looked irritated. This case is about murder, not money. But yes, Eleanor Caldwell left her estate to her grandson Austin after discovering that her son and daughter-in-law had been abusing him for years and lying about his parentage. That information came to light during the investigation and provided additional motive for the defendant's behavior. Ashley turned off the TV. It's really over. No, I said. It's just starting. Now comes the trial. The trial didn't start for another 8 months. Pre-trial motions, discovery, jury selection. I spent that time trying to build a life that felt normal. I quit my job at the auto parts store and enrolled in community college to finish my degree. I started seeing a therapist twice a week to process everything that had happened. Margaret helped me set up the inheritance properly, investments and accounts, and a budget that would let me live comfortably without blowing through everything like my parents had. I stayed in Grandma's house. I renovated the kitchen and updated the bathrooms and turned one of the bedrooms into an office. I planted new flowers in the garden and fixed the porch railing and painted the shutters. I made it mine. Ashley visited often. Logan came by once, awkward and guilty, and we talked for hours about what it was like growing up in that house with those parents. He cried a lot. He apologized for every time he'd gone along with their cruelty. I told him I forgave him. I wasn't sure I meant it yet, but I wanted to. Maybe someday I would. The trial started in March. I sat in the courtroom every single day. Margaret sat beside me. Ashley came when she could get time off work. Logan never showed up. The prosecution laid out their case methodically. They presented Jennifer's journal entries, the neighbor testimonies, the timeline discrepancies. The forensic evidence showing Jennifer's injuries were inconsistent with a simple fall. Carmen Ruiz testified about the phone call from Jennifer that morning, about the plans they'd made. The original coroner testified about the old bruises he'd found on Jennifer's body. Susan's diary was entered as evidence, and the entry was read aloud in court. David sat at the defense table looking older than his 54 years. Gray, thin. His lawyer argued that the evidence was circumstantial, that the journal entries proved Jennifer was clumsy and accident-prone, that the timeline discrepancies were the result of trauma and poor memory, that Susan's diary entry was taken out of context. But then the prosecution called Susan to the stand. She'd taken a plea deal, testify against David, and she'd get 7 years instead of 20. She took the deal. She sat in the witness box in an orange jumpsuit and told the truth. David called me the afternoon Jennifer died. He told me Jennifer was leaving him and taking Austin. He said he couldn't let that happen. He said he'd pushed her down the stairs during an argument. He said it was an accident, but he pushed her. He admitted it to me. Then he asked me to help him make it look like she'd fallen. He told me to back up his story that everything was fine in their marriage. He said if I didn't help him, he'd tell police I was involved too. I was scared, so I helped him lie. David's lawyer tried to break her testimony on cross-examination, but Susan held firm. She'd made her choice. She was going to save herself by burying him. The jury deliberated for 2 days. When they came back, the forewoman stood and read the verdict. Guilty of second-degree murder. Guilty of child endangerment for leaving a toddler in the house with his mother's body for an hour before calling 911. Guilty of evidence tampering. David showed no emotion. He just stared at the table in front of him while the judge set a sentencing date. 6 weeks later, he was sentenced to 35 years to life. Susan got 7 years as per her plea agreement. Both would be eligible for parole eventually, but the odds of them getting out early were slim. I didn't feel victorious when it was over. I felt empty, tired, like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long that now that it was gone, I didn't know what to do with my arms. Ashley hugged me outside the courthouse. "It's over," she said again. This time I believed her. I went back to Grandma's house and sat in the garden with the locket around my neck. "Mom," I said out loud, "they can't hurt anyone else now. You can rest." The wind picked up, rustling through the trees. Somewhere a bird was singing. The sun was warm on my face, and for the first time in 23 years, I felt like I could breathe. Margaret helped me set up a foundation in my mother's name, the Jennifer Caldwell Foundation for Domestic Violence Survivors. We funded shelters and legal aid and counseling services. We helped women leave dangerous situations. We made sure they had the resources Jennifer never had. Ashley became the foundation's first employee. She coordinated with the shelters and managed the grant applications. She threw herself into the work like she was trying to make up for all the years she'd stayed silent. Maybe she was. Logan spiraled. He moved to another state and cut off contact with everyone. Last I heard, he was working construction and drinking too much. Ashley worried about him, but he wouldn't take her calls. Some damage is too deep to fix quickly. I finished my degree, business management. I got a job at a nonprofit doing financial planning and discovered I was good at it. Good at helping people manage their money. Good at teaching them how to budget and save and build a life that didn't depend on anyone else. I started dating someone I met at school. Her name was Riley Chen, and she was studying social work, and she didn't know anything about my past until I told her. She listened to the whole story without interrupting, and when I was done, she said, "Your mom would be proud of who you became." I cried. I hadn't cried through the entire trial, but I cried then, sitting in a coffee shop with this girl I barely knew, because she'd said exactly what I needed to hear. 2 years later, I proposed to Riley in Grandma's garden. She said yes. We got married in the same garden with Margaret officiating and Ashley as the maid of honor. Logan didn't come, but he sent a card with a short message. "I'm happy for you. I'm sorry I can't be there. I'm working on being better. Love, Logan." It was enough. Riley moved into the house with me and we made it ours together. We painted the walls and updated the landscaping and turned the office into a nursery when Riley got pregnant. Our daughter was born on a Tuesday morning in October. We named her Eleanor Jennifer Caldwell, Ellie for short. I held her in the hospital and looked at her tiny face and made a promise. You will always know you're loved. You will always know you're wanted. You will never doubt that you belong. Riley smiled at me from the bed, exhausted and happy. She's perfect. Yeah, I agreed. She is. Margaret came to visit the next day. She was 70 now, officially retired, but still sharp as ever. She held Ellie and cried, "Your grandmother would have loved her." "I think she does," I said. 3 years after that, David had his first parole hearing. It was denied. 5 years after that, he had another one, also denied. Susan got out after serving her full 7 years. She moved to another state, and I never heard from her again. Ashley said Susan tried to contact her once, but Ashley didn't respond. Some bridges you burn completely. I saw David once after the trial. I'd gone to the prison to give a victim impact statement for his parole hearing. He looked old, broken, nothing like the man who'd terrorized my mother and made my childhood hell. He asked to speak to me before I left. The guard let us talk through the glass partition with phones. "I'm sorry," David said. His voice was hoarse. "I know that doesn't mean anything, but I'm sorry for what I did to your mother. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I was angry and bitter, and I took it out on people who didn't deserve it." "Why?" I asked. Why did you hate me so much? Because you looked like her, he said simply. Every time I saw you, I saw Jennifer. I saw her eyes and her smile, and I remembered what I'd done. So I tried to make you disappear. I tried to erase you, but you wouldn't disappear. You kept existing, kept surviving, and it drove me crazy. I'm glad I survived, I said. Me too, David said quietly. For what it's worth, I'm glad you got the inheritance. I'm glad you got the truth. And I'm glad you're living the life Jennifer wanted for you. I hung up the phone and walked out. I never went back. Ellie is 7 now. She's smart and funny and kind. She loves dinosaurs and soccer and reading. Riley and I had another baby 2 years ago, a boy we named James after Riley's grandfather. They play together in the same garden where I proposed, where I scattered some of Grandma's ashes, where I sometimes sit and think about my mother and everything she lost. Ashley is married now too. She met a man named Marcus, who works as a teacher and treats her like she's precious. They have a daughter named Sophie who's best friends with Ellie. The cousins play together at family dinners that happen at my house every Sunday. Real family dinners, the kind I never had growing up. Logan came back eventually. He got sober and moved to a town an hour away and reached out tentatively. Ashley met with him first. Then me. He's different now. Quieter. More thoughtful. He works as a counselor at a rehab facility and sponsors other men trying to get clean. He comes to Sunday dinners sometimes. It's still awkward, but we're trying. The foundation has helped over 3,000 women leave abusive situations. We've expanded to 4 states. Ashley runs it full-time now, and she's brilliant at it. She speaks at conferences and trains shelter staff and fights for better laws. She's become the person she wishes she'd been when we were kids. I'm 30 now. I have a family, a career, a life that feels real and solid and mine. I don't think about David and Susan much anymore. They're footnotes in my story, not the main characters. But I think about my mother every day. I think about her strength in documenting the abuse, her courage in planning to leave, the choice she made to protect me even when it cost her everything. I think about how she never got to see me grow up, but how everything I am is because of her. Sometimes Ellie asks about her grandmother Jennifer. We've told her age-appropriate versions of the story. That Grandma Jennifer died when Daddy was little, that she loved Daddy very much, that she was brave and kind. One day, when Ellie's older, I'll tell her the whole truth. I'll show her the journal entries and the photos and explain what happened. I'll make sure she understands that her grandmother was a survivor who fought back the only way she could, that she documented the truth so that someday, somehow, justice would be possible. But for now, Ellie just knows that we light a candle for Grandma Jennifer on her birthday every year, that we visit her grave and leave flowers, that her picture hangs in our living room next to Grandma Eleanor's. Riley comes up behind me while I'm standing at the stove making dinner. She wraps her arms around my waist and rests her chin on my shoulder. What are you thinking about? Just how different everything is, I say. How different it could have been. But this is how it is, Riley says. You made it this way. You and Ashley and your mom and your grandma, all of you fighting for something better. I turn around and kiss her. You're right. Ellie runs in, demanding to know when dinner will be ready. James toddles behind her, barely keeping up. The kitchen is warm and full of noise and life. This is my family. The one I chose. The one I built from nothing. And somewhere, I think my mother is proud. The inheritance gave me money and security. The trial gave me justice. But the years since then gave me something more important. They gave me peace. They gave me the understanding that I'm not defined by the people who hurt me, that I can be more than my trauma, that I can build something good from something terrible. I'm not the adopted kid who wasn't good enough anymore. I'm not the outsider who didn't belong. I'm Austin Caldwell. I'm a husband and a father and a son who finally knows his whole story. The good and the bad, the beautiful and the broken. And I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Update 1. The trial aftermath. The anniversary of David's sentencing passed quietly. I didn't mark it on the calendar, but I knew what day it was when I woke up. Riley noticed me staring at my coffee longer than usual. You okay? Yeah, just thinking. She knew better than to push. That's one of the things I love about her. She understands that some thoughts need space. Work kept me busy. The foundation was expanding into 2 more states, and Ashley needed my help with the financial planning. We were on a video call going over budgets when her assistant interrupted. I'm sorry, but there's someone here insisting on seeing you. She says she's your mother. Ashley's face went pale on the screen. Tell her I'm not available. She says it's urgent. She says it's about Logan. My stomach dropped. Put her on speaker. A moment later, Susan's voice filled the room. Ashley, please. I know you don't want to see me, but Logan is in the hospital. He tried to kill himself 3 days ago. They don't think he's going to make it. The video call ended. Ashley was already grabbing her keys. I told her I'd meet her there. The hospital was 2 hours away in the town where Logan had been living. Ashley and I arrived within minutes of each other. Susan was in the waiting room looking nothing like the woman I remembered. She'd aged 20 years in the 7 she'd been in prison. Her hair was gray and stringy. Her clothes looked secondhand. She stood when she saw us. "Don't," Ashley said. "Don't say anything. Just tell us which room." "ICU, 3rd floor, room 307. Susan's voice cracked. "They said family only and I'm still his mother, so they let me in, but he won't wake up. He won't." We walked past her to the elevators. I didn't look back. Logan was on a ventilator. His face was bruised and swollen. His arms were wrapped in bandages. The nurse who met us was kind but direct. He took pills and alcohol. His roommate found him and called 911, but it had been a while. They did what they could, but there's significant liver damage. Brain activity is minimal. Ashley sank into the chair beside his bed. She took his hand carefully, avoiding the IV lines. "Logan, it's Ashley. I'm here. Austin's here too. You have to wake up. Please wake up." But he didn't wake up. Not that day. Not the next. On the 3rd day, his doctor sat us down and explained that Logan was brain dead. The machines were keeping his body alive, but he was already gone. Ashley sobbed. "Austin, what do we do?" "We let him go," I said quietly. "We let him rest." Susan appeared in the doorway. She'd been hovering in the waiting room for days. "Let me say goodbye first, please." Ashley looked at me. I nodded. We stepped outside while Susan went in. Through the window, I watched her collapse beside Logan's bed, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Whatever she said to him, we couldn't hear it. After 10 minutes, she came out. Her eyes were red and swollen. "I did this to him. I destroyed my own son." "You destroyed a lot of things," I said. She looked at me like she wanted to argue. Then she just nodded and walked away. We withdrew life support that evening. Ashley and I stayed with Logan until the end. It didn't take long. 1 minute the machines were beeping and his chest was rising and falling. The next minute everything was quiet. Ashley cried herself sick. I held her and stared at my brother, the one I'd barely known, and felt nothing but waste. What a waste of a life. What a waste of potential. Logan could have been anything. Instead, he'd been crushed under the weight of who our parents were. The funeral was small. Me, Ashley, Riley, Marcus, Margaret. Susan came but stayed in the back. She didn't approach us. She didn't try to speak. She just stood there looking hollowed out and old. We buried Logan next to Grandma Eleanor. Ashley wanted him close to someone good, someone who would have loved him if she'd had the chance. After the funeral, I found Susan sitting on a bench near the parking lot. I sat down beside her without saying anything. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "I know you hate me. I don't hate you. I don't feel anything about you at all." "That's worse," she said. "Probably." She wiped her eyes. "I was jealous of Jennifer. Did you know that? She was beautiful and kind, and everyone loved her. When David married me 6 months after she died, people whispered about it. They said it was too soon. They said I was a rebound. And they were right. David never loved me the way he loved her. He was always comparing me to her, always finding me lacking. So when you came along, looking just like her, I hated you for it. I hated that you were proof of David's real love, proof that I was second choice. That's not my fault," I said. "I know." Susan's voice was barely a whisper. "I know it wasn't your fault, but I punished you anyway. I made you into the enemy so I didn't have to face what I really was. A woman who married a murderer and helped him hide it. A woman who destroyed her own stepson to protect a lie. A woman who's lost everything because she couldn't stand to lose anything. Logan didn't deserve what you did to him." "No," she agreed. "He didn't. Neither did Ashley. Neither did you. I destroyed my whole family because I was weak and scared and jealous, and now I have to live with that." "Good," I said, standing up. "You should live with it. You should carry it every day for the rest of your life. Maybe that's your punishment. Not prison. Just knowing what you did and who you really are." I walked away and left her on that bench. I never saw her again. Ashley spiraled after Logan's death. She blamed herself for not reaching out more, for not trying harder to help him. I reminded her that Logan was an adult who made his own choices. That we can't save people who don't want to be saved. But grief doesn't listen to logic. She threw herself deeper into the foundation work. 16-hour days, weekends, late nights. Marcus worried. I worried. Finally, Riley sat her down and talked to her like the social worker she was. "You're running from the grief. You're trying to work yourself to death to avoid feeling the pain. But it doesn't work that way. The pain doesn't go away. You just get exhausted and the pain is still there." Ashley broke down. "I don't know how to live with this. I don't know how to accept that Logan's gone and it's because of what our parents did to us, to all of us." Riley held her while she cried. Then she set Ashley up with a therapist, the same one I'd been seeing for years. A woman named Dr. Patricia Hammond, who specialized in family trauma. Ashley started going twice a week. Slowly, she started to stabilize. She cut her work hours back to something reasonable. She and Marcus started trying to have a baby. She planted a tree in her backyard in Logan's memory, and she talked to it sometimes when she was sad. Life moved forward the way it always does. Whether you're ready or not, whether you want it to or not. 6 months after Logan died, I got a call from Detective Rosenthal. She'd retired from the police force but kept in touch occasionally. "Austin, I need to tell you something. David filed an appeal. My blood went cold. On what grounds? Ineffective counsel. He's claiming his lawyer didn't defend him properly, and he deserves a new trial. Will it work? Probably not. But it means the case will be reviewed. It means you might have to testify again. I wanted to give you a heads up. I told Riley that night. She was furious. He's already in prison. What more does he want? He wants out. He wants another chance to lie his way free. That's not going to happen. But it could, I said. Ashley and I talked to Margaret. She explained that appeals were common in murder cases, that David had every right to file one, that it would probably be denied, but we should prepare for the possibility of going through everything again. Ashley was devastated. I can't do it, Austin. I can't sit in that courtroom again and listen to them dissect what our parents did. I can't watch them try to twist it into something other than murder. You might not have to, Margaret said gently. Appeals rarely result in new trials. The standard for overturning a conviction is very high. David's lawyer would have to prove serious errors were made during the original trial. But for months, it hung over us like a storm cloud. The appeal was filed. The court reviewed it. David's new lawyer argued that crucial evidence had been mishandled, that Susan's testimony should have been excluded because of her plea deal, that the forensic analysis was flawed. The appellate court heard arguments on a Tuesday in November. I attended with Margaret. Ashley couldn't bring herself to go. The judges asked questions. David's lawyer stumbled on some answers. The prosecution was rock solid. 3 weeks later, the decision came down. Appeal denied. The conviction stood. David would serve his full sentence. I called Ashley. She cried with relief. It's really over now, right? It has to be over. It's over, I promised. But the truth was, it would never be completely over. Trauma doesn't work that way. You don't just survive something terrible and then move on like it never happened. It becomes part of you. It changes the shape of your life. I still had nightmares sometimes. Dreams where my mother was alive and David was chasing her through the house. Dreams where I was 2 years old again, crying in my crib while my mother lay dead at the bottom of the stairs. Dreams where I opened my mouth to scream and nothing came out. Riley would wake me up gently. You're safe. You're here. It was just a dream. And I'd believe her. But the dreams kept coming. Ashley had her own nightmares. Her own triggers. The sound of shouting. The smell of whiskey. The sight of grocery bags, because that's what David had been carrying the night he killed Jennifer. We learned to live with it. That's what survivors do. We learn to carry the weight without letting it crush us. We learn to function around the pain. We learn that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about integrating, taking the broken pieces and building something new with them. The foundation grew. We helped more women. We saved more lives. Every woman who escaped because we gave her resources. Every child who grew up safe because we helped their mother leave. Every life that continued because we intervened. That was Jennifer's legacy. That was what came from her death. Ellie started asking more questions about Grandma Jennifer as she got older. Why did she die? Was she sick? Riley and I had talked about how to handle this. We decided on honesty, age-appropriate but truthful. Grandma Jennifer was hurt by someone who was supposed to love her. She died because of that hurt. It wasn't fair and it wasn't right. But her life meant something. She loved your daddy very much and she tried to protect him. Who hurt her? Ellie asked. Someone bad, I said. But he's in jail now. He can't hurt anyone anymore. Ellie thought about this. Did you know him? I did, I said carefully. But I don't see him anymore. And I never will again. Good, Ellie said firmly. People who hurt other people should stay in jail forever, out of the mouths of babes. James was too young to understand any of it yet. He just knew he had 2 grandmas in heaven, Eleanor and Jennifer, and we talked about them sometimes. He liked looking at photos of Eleanor's garden and hearing stories about how she used to grow tomatoes bigger than his head. Normal life. That's what we'd built. A normal, stable, boring life where the most dramatic thing was James refusing to eat vegetables or Ellie getting in trouble at school for talking during quiet time. I worked. Riley worked. The kids went to school. We had dinner together every night. We watched movies on weekends. We took vacations to the beach and the mountains and Disney World. We were aggressively, defiantly normal. But underneath it all, the history remained. The weight of everything that had happened. Everything we'd survived. It was always there. We just got better at carrying it. Ashley had a baby girl. They named her Jennifer, after my mother. Little Jenny looked nothing like her namesake, but Ashley swore she had Jennifer's spirit, strong and stubborn and brave. Sophie and Jenny and Ellie and James became a pack, 4 cousins who played together constantly, who built forts in the backyard and put on shows for the adults, and fought over toys and made up immediately after. They were growing up in a family that loved them, that would never make them question their worth, that would never treat them as less than. That was the victory, not the inheritance, not the trial, not David rotting in prison. The victory was these 4 kids who would never know what it felt like to be unwanted, who would never have to wonder if they belonged, who would grow up safe. Margaret died peacefully in her sleep when she was 74. We found out 2 days later when her law partner called. She'd left instructions for her funeral. Simple, no fuss. Donations to the Jennifer Caldwell Foundation in lieu of flowers. At the funeral, I learned things about Margaret I hadn't known. She'd been married once, briefly, in her 20s. She'd lost a daughter to domestic violence when she was 40. That's why she'd become so close to Grandma Eleanor. That's why she'd fought so hard for Jennifer's case to be reopened. She was fighting for her own daughter, too, for the justice she'd never gotten. I gave the eulogy. Margaret was the kind of person who changed lives quietly. She didn't seek attention or praise. She just did the work. She helped people. She fought for what was right. And she made sure that when my grandmother died, the truth came with her. I'll never be able to repay what she did for me, for my mother, for all of us. But I'll try. I'll keep the foundation going. I'll keep helping people the way she helped me. That's how I'll honor her. Ashley cried through the whole service. So did I. We'd lost another piece of our support system, another person who'd believed in us when no one else did. But we kept going, because that's what you do. You keep going. 3 years later, I got a call from the prison. David was sick. Stage 4 lung cancer. He had maybe 6 months left. He wanted to see me. I said no immediately. But the chaplain called back a week later. Mr. Caldwell, your father is dying. He's asking for a chance to make peace before he goes. I'm not saying you owe him anything, but I'm asking you to consider whether you might regret not seeing him one last time. I talked to Riley about it. She left the decision up to me. You're the only one who knows what you need. I talked to Ashley about it. She said absolutely not. He doesn't deserve your time or your forgiveness. I talked to Dr. Hammond about it. She asked what I thought I might gain or lose by going. What would it give you to see him? What would it cost you to refuse? I didn't know the answer. In the end, I went. Not for him, for me, because I needed to look at him one more time and confirm that he had no power over me anymore. That he was just a dying old man who'd made terrible choices and was facing the consequences. The prison escorted me to the infirmary. David was in a bed surrounded by machines. He'd lost at least 50 pounds. His skin was gray. He looked like a ghost. "Austin," he said when he saw me. His voice was weak. "You came. I'm here. That's all you get." He nodded. "That's fair." He coughed, a wet rattling sound. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted to tell you one thing before I die." "What?" "I loved your mother," he said. "I really did, and I killed her anyway. That's the truth. I loved her, and I was so angry that she was leaving that I pushed her. I didn't mean for her to die. I just wanted her to stop talking about leaving, to stop saying she was taking you away from me. So I pushed her, and she fell, and she died. And I've spent every day since then knowing I destroyed the only person who ever really loved me." Tears were running down his face. I felt nothing. "I made myself into a monster," David continued. "I treated you like garbage because I hated that you looked like her, that you reminded me of what I'd done. Susan enabled it because she was afraid of me. Logan and Ashley went along with it because they didn't know any better. And your grandmother saw right through all of it. She knew what I was. She knew what I'd done. And she made sure you'd be okay after she was gone. She saved you when I tried to destroy you." He reached toward me with a shaking hand. "I'm sorry. I know it's not enough. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry." I looked at his hand. "I didn't take it. You don't get to die with a clear conscience. You don't get to confess and feel better. You killed my mother. You stole my childhood. You're the reason Logan is dead. You're the reason Ashley struggles every single day. You did that. You chose that. And now you get to die knowing exactly what you are. A murderer, an abuser, a failure." David's hand dropped. His face crumpled. "You're right. You're absolutely right." I stood up to leave. Then I turned back. "One more thing. I have a family now. A wife and kids. They're never going to know you. They're never going to visit this prison or hear your excuses. You're nothing to them. Just a story about why we don't tolerate violence. Why we don't make excuses for abuse. Why we protect each other. That's your legacy. Being the example of what not to be." I walked out. I didn't look back. 3 months later, the prison called to tell me David had died. Did I want to claim the body? No, I said. Cremate him and dispose of the ashes. I don't care how. They did. Wherever David's ashes ended up, I never knew. I never asked.